Cool. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. If you can find the little hand raise, is this anyone's first time coming to our workshop series? So there's a little hand symbol, I believe. Okay, so we've got one person who is their first time. Okay, well, that's enough. I just need to know if there's at least one person that this is their first time coming. So thank you for coming. I am Jill DaSilva. I was invited by Calgary UX to come and lead an awesome workshop. You all are what's making it awesome for UX design. So really just dipping our toes into what is the UX design process. And we are kind of on our second to last session, and I'll give a high level overview of what we've covered. Luis has done a great job of posting all the videos online. We have a break from this session. There's a 1 week break, and then we have one more session, which will be a final session. So if this is your first time, you could work quickly and you could still participate in this design challenge. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And Michelle is going to be moderating. And if you want to ask anything in the chat, she'll let me know, and she'll stop me and say, hey, Jill, can you explain that more? Or we have a question. So thank you, Michelle, for that. And we also, part of this session is live right now in Calgary. So we're a bit of both. We're virtual and live. So for anyone that's new, and also for a recap, we have a workshop goal, which is designing a coffee app. And so you can choose your own adventure. How far do you want to take this? You can just do 3 screens. And let me see if I have my cursor. There we go. You just do 3 screens. If you just want to practice designing, I am demonstrating in Adobe XD today, but you can use whichever tool is easiest for you and you feel like you have the most success in, or you can try to learn some XD. And I have a bunch of useful links down at the bottom of this document. And so what I forgot to do is let me paste this in here. So you all can have access to this. It's a living document. And this way you can check out the thing and the useful links. Oops. There we go. So posted that there. So this is our working document here. Again, a lot of useful links down at the bottom. And what we covered in the first session was, what is UX design? What's the process? And we talked a little bit about that. We jumped into what is the problem we're solving, thinking about personas, how to do competitive and comparative analysis research, what's a user flow, and hand sketching. The next session, we went into beginning of low fidelity wireframing. And then after that, we did high fidelity wireframing, again, with some resources built in, and some light prototyping. Previous session, we did a little deeper dive into some examples of interaction design and some best practices around that, because just because you can animate everything doesn't mean you should. So, you can check that recording back. So today it is November 9th, and we are talking about sharing your designs. And so I'm going to show you technically how to share your designs in Adobe XD. But one of the things I also wanted to chat about is how to speak to your designs, because if you joined a little bit late, Luis did a great job describing, like, how do you describe your work? And one of the things, if I'm showing someone a prototype, and I'll give an example, instead of just telling you about it, I'll just give you an example. Before I jump in, though, to today's session, again, November 23rd will be our final session. You all can ask me anything about UX design career, how to get your first job, what about your portfolio, what do UX designers make? And again, this is not just me, this whole community. I know we have a lot of ranges of experiences here, so really support each other. Again, there is a Slack channel that you all can be a part of for Calgary UX, and it is such a warm, supportive place and such a good, diverse group of people. So I highly encourage you to join that. I think, Michelle, if you can add that to the chat, if there's a link for that. But if you signed up for this session, you probably got a link. But anyway, make sure you're there, and you can message me. You can @Jill DaSilva, and I will gladly chime in to questions between now and our final session. If you want a chance to win 1 year of the Adobe Creative Cloud, you will need to submit your designs to Behance to be considered. And you'll need to share those links. I'm trying to remember. Oh, November 21st will be the deadline to have at least 3 screens published to Behance. And then we'll talk about, we'll draw the winner at random on that last session. Okay, so let's jump in today, sharing your designs. We did have a question from someone in the Slack channel, and I wanted just to talk about that a little bit. I'm not going to talk about this in terms of technicality of the tool itself, but one of the things I did want to talk about, when you have a prototype, whether you put it, if you hand a prototype just to even a stakeholder and you don't walk them through it and you don't give them a scenario and you don't tell them what feedback you're looking for, you might get all kinds of things. Well, why can't I press this button, or why doesn't this work, and everything else. A lot of times prototypes really are kind of the happy path from user gets from point A to point B, and everything that happens in between there. But you don't have to make everything clickable. Not everything has to be functional, but it can be a little bit tricky. Like I said, if you hand it off to someone without context of what they're supposed to do. So whenever I work with my design, some of my design teams, I encourage them to give the scenario, like what business problem are they solving? What work have they done if I've looked at this work more than once? What's new, what's different? What feedback are they looking for? Now, in terms of a portfolio piece, I highly recommend recording your prototype and putting it in your portfolio so that there's nothing to get confused by. I'm just watching the flow happen and you've described it to me. So, if a prototype link gets broken or something like that, that's not going to get you caught up in someone thinking you don't know how to prototype by having it embedded. So I'll show you a couple different things again today about sharing, one in context of your portfolio and the other in context of sharing it with team members. So, and if you're, again, user testing is another way that you might be sharing. Now, particularly if you're user testing your design, I prefer moderated user testing. I think that was another conversation that was happening inside the Slack group. And I prefer moderated because I can get much deeper. I can ask more questions. I can give them a better guidance. You can do unmoderated through tools like usertesting.com. But moderated's cheaper. I can have my prototype link. I can have like a Zoom meeting and I can record it and I can share it with my team later. So I honestly prefer to do moderated. I do my intro. I'm not going to go too deep into usability testing. I have a link here for you all about how to run a test. They even have consent forms, etc. For y'all. So they have everything you need here on that usability.gov site. What else?
Jill, there's a question.
Yeah.
From Celia. It says, can you do a voiceover on Loom?
You can. You absolutely can. So if you wanted to talk about your design and have that embedded in as a video inside of your portfolio, you absolutely can do voiceover. You can even, it can even show your face if you want. I don't know if it's changed. I can't imagine life without Loom. I have it as a Chrome plugin here. I use it every day. In fact, look, it's even here, record a Loom. So I use it for, what do I want to say? Asynchronous feedback with design teams because it's in context. But if you, again, for your portfolio, sorry, I got excited. For your portfolio, yes, you can do that. And I think the first 5 minutes is free. You probably don't want a long video anyway. If you do, you probably want to break it up into sections so it's multiple videos. But and you can download the video from Loom and then you can upload it wherever you would like. Also, Loom provides hyperlinks, so you could also just link to your video if you want. You probably don't want them looking at all of that interface, so you could just embed it. Just brainstorming out loud with y'all. But I do love Loom. I'm a huge fan. I'm so grateful for it. Loom even does transcripts. So if you want to make your prototype and voiceover accessible, I think you might have to pay to get the transcript part, but it does a pretty darn good job of transcribing what you say. And I think it can even remove the ums out of there, which I say a lot. Okay, so let's talk about, so I talked about I'll talk about in the design sharing for user testing. Let's start there. So let's imagine I want to share this design for user testing. I already have some here, but I'm inside of XD and I can go into my share mode. And I have this the mobile prototype saved. And I can do another one. So I can create a new link. So I can do a new link, patient flow, and I can do this, user testing. And I can change this to here, and anyone with the link can view, and I'll just turn that on. And so now I have a dev link under this hyperlink, and I have a user testing link under this hyperlink. So I have both. So you can create multiple URLs for the same prototype if you want. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So when I go to this view that I created for user testing, all it does is it opens it automatically into full screen. And so if I wanted to exit that, I could, but there's not going to be any commenting or anything else. The only thing good about this, if exiting the full screen mode, maybe I want the user to start someplace else. I didn't prototype it out exactly the way I wanted, or I want to jump to a section. I can do that. But anyway, I can go here, and this little arrows, these two arrows will take me back to full screen mode. So this is probably how, if I were going to do remote moderated user testing, I would have a Zoom call and I would share this prototype link, and I would give them questions. Hey, give them the scenario, imagine you're this, go through the test, and then just get their feedback on different parts that are necessary. Yeah, so that's how I would share for user testing. Any questions about that, about sharing from XD for user testing? Okay, if something comes up, feel free to pop it in the chat. Okay, so sharing with your team. So I'm going to talk about designer to designer. Again, every tool is different. I'm not going to be able to compare what tool does what because my focus has been on XD. So again, I'm going to do this from the lens of XD. Now imagine I am working with other designers here. I would probably save this as a cloud document, and I would invite them to this file. I'll give you an example. Well, I won't, because this is recorded. Never mind. I was going to give you a live example, but I can't show it. So it would ask me to save this, and I would just do. Right now, this was a local version. And it's going to save it there. Hopefully my internet's fast enough right now. I'm using Starlink for mobile homes right now. It's doing a pretty good job. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit, but I can invite people here. So I could invite Michelle, I could invite Louise, I can invite any of my design team members, and they can come inside this document and co-edit with me. So that's one way to share with them. You can see it's trying to sync to the cloud up here. So let's jump into another one. So sharing with my design team. Now I can also share for like the design review piece. So if I wanted to, and I wanted to do design review, I could do it this way and give them the link. So let's do that. Let's do this here. I don't know if this is going to mess up what it's trying to do on the other side as far as saving it to the cloud. Hopefully this doesn't get hung up too much. And what I can do is I'll go file, open recent. It's going to do it. Okay, I'll go back here because I think it's still doing its thing. Nope, sorry, y'all. Just one moment. Oh, it's ready. I think it's ready. Well, let's see. Nope, still doing its thing. Okay, I'm gonna come over here. If I created any links here, I did. Okay, so this is a share link, and this was design review. Yay! So I'm just going to copy the link and open it up. So for design review, you're going to see that there's commenting over here. Now I covered this a little bit in one of our other sessions, but this is where I could leave comments with and for my designers, and I can, I can pin something and talk about this menu if I want. If I didn't want to do that piece, let me move everybody's faces. I can cancel that. I can also filter based on who did who was the reviewer? When was it? Was it resolved or not? And once something is kind of resolved, I can go through here and resolve it. So this would be how I would work with stakeholders and other team members to get feedback. One piece of advice, again, never hand off a design to a stakeholder and even a team member or a dev team member without walking them through it first, because they're going to have questions, and you can explain it better. It's better to explain it once up front than let them go through it once after you've walked them through it, because again, especially if it's asynchronous, carve out 10 minutes to talk about your design with them and walk them through it. Okay. Another little piece of advice here. Let's see where I'm at. Designer to stakeholder. Those are very similar. Designer, I'm probably going to invite to my file. Stakeholders, I'm probably not. It depends on the type of stakeholder. I make a joke. I had one client one time who was like, hey, I just downloaded Illustrator. I'm going to help with designs. And he'd never done design at all. And we're like, oh no. So depending on your stakeholder and their skill set, you may or may not want to invite them to your file. Something else that you can do though, with any type of like source file sharing, if you're working with a content team, there are some plugins to bring in content from like Google Sheets and things like that. But it's really nice if you're working with SEO or a content team to actually invite them to the source file, because they can see how the copy that they're creating is going to affect the layout. So I think it's useful, even though they don't have to be design wizards, they at least need to be able to type in text. And I highly encourage that. Again, it depends on the size of the team and what you're doing, but something to consider. Okay, so designer to developer. So let's imagine we're designing designer to developer. And I notice here that my shared document is here and I can invite people. And I can leave a little message. I can leave a message for them here, and they're going to get an alert in here inside of their Creative Cloud desktop app. So I'll see if I can scroll down and see if there's any comments, places, beep, boop, beep. You can see where people have invited me to co-edit in a file. And if I've already accepted an invitation, I usually don't see that. Oh, so here's an invitation here. I got invited to a file. So this is where I check those invitations and I can go to those files. Again, from designer to designer. Okay. I'm going to not invite that person, and let's continue on. Let me regroup here. Okay, designer to developer, that's what I will do. And I do want to reopen this other file because it's already ready. Oh, that one's already open. This is a special surprise. I'm going to show you all that in just a moment. I'm going to go back to medical use case. I'll get to see my file structure. Okay. So I'm opening this up. This was my local version. So notice the difference. This is my local version. There's no cloud. This is my cloud version where I can have co-editors. I guess one other thing I'll mention here is version history. So it's only going to be today because I just did it. But if I made big changes or someone else came into the file to make big changes, they could come in and be like, let's see if it'll let me bookmark this. And normally it'll let me edit the name, but I think it's too soon right now. Yeah, it'll let me edit this. I can say Jill created, the prototype for mobile or something like that. I don't know how long you've all been designing, but I make jokes about this is the final and this is the final. This is the final, how you name files. And, with this versioning, you don't have to do that. That being said, I still often save a local version. I don't care what tool you're using. If you've ever done a lot of work and lost your work, oh my goodness, it's the most stressful thing on the planet. Electricity can go out, there's random things that can happen. And so just often, when you've reached some big milestones in your designs, save it locally. But having a versioning capability does reduce the amount of file sharing and naming and versioning back and forth that you have to do. So I do really appreciate that feature. Okay, so let's imagine I am working with a developer, and let's go to this link here. I'm going to go to this one. Let's go here. I'm going to change it. Let's do a new link. And I'll do, this is for developer. Am I spelling it right? There we go. And this was going to be, I'm going to choose for development. I'm going to say download, they can download these assets. So what I did in the design file is I came in and I selected this piece, oops, and I chose mark for export. Now there's a couple different places you can mark for export. I can also right click on this and mark for export, and I can also mark for export right here. So there's a couple there's 3 different places you can mark for export. And you could probably do it up here in the menu, I don't know. But I always just, I usually select it and choose the menu or in the layer structure, but sometimes right clicking is fastest. Anyway, so I want to mark this for export so my developer can download this SVG, this vector graphic that I have. So SVG stands for scalable vector graphic, which means no matter what size it's on, it's always going to look crisp. So, using that in my design is important. I probably want them to have any icons that, I don't want them to have to kind of make it up themselves. They're going to need this. And what else? Sometimes I might give them a button or something. Let's see. Let's see if this doctor, yep, this doctor is also marked for export. So we're good to go here. I'm going to go to my share. I'm going to create this link and should be fast. And what it's doing right now, it's setting up, it will pull some CSS, and there is a deeper level of sharing using your assets and design tokens. I'm not going to go there because we're going to stay high level just for sake of time. But again, you have a bunch of resources in that working Google Doc that you can learn more about that. And we're all looking at it, so it's not going to change. There we go. Okay. So let's take a look at what it looks like now, sharing with the development team. So if I'm a developer, I still, if I'm a designer, I can share this with my developer and they're going to get this URL. Now, if I make updates to my wireframe and save and resave, it will keep it the same link unless I go in and change stuff around up here. But if I just make some updates and then update the link, it's going to be the same URL and they just need to refresh it and they can come back and see the changes. So as a developer, if a developer were to come in here, they can come in and they can see, this downloadable asset right here, and they're going to get the option to download it as a SVG, PNG, PDF, or JPEG. So as a designer in the past, what I used to have to do is I would have to pull all these, put them in a folder, and hopefully they could grab them and understand what context it was supposed to be in. But with the developer view here, I can tap on this or the developer can tap on this and they can see how far away this is from other things. They understand where it sits on the page. So this gives a lot better contextual examples. The other thing that this does is they can pull the text. So if I've worked with a copywriter, I don't want them to have to worry about thinking about text. They can copy the text. And they can also get all the colors from here, all the colors, all the character styles, and then they'll also see kind of the interaction that happens. If I were to click on this button, it will also show the different states that I have built in here so that the developer can see that. So yeah, this is, as far as XD goes, how I would share with a developer. And yeah, you could also old school it. You could also, right now I have all these mobile screens selected. I could do file, export, and I could do selected or all artboard. So if I do selected, I can choose my format and I can choose, export size, depending on what that format is. I'm not going to save it right now. I could also export individual items. So if I wanted to, I could go file, export, selected, and it's going to give me that same option, but it's just showing me this nurse right here. So depending on how you want to share it, you can export from in the file. You could also share via the share links. Okay, so that was a lot on sharing. Let me look at my notes and let me know if you'll have any questions about what you've seen so far while I regroup my thoughts. Okay. This next piece about sharing, if you've been looking at our kind of working document here, I'm going to go back to my share mode, and I want to share this prototype. Notice how I can choose these different prototype sections if I want. But let's imagine I want to share this flow. Imagine this is your coffee app that you've been working on, and you want to have this uploaded to Behance, and you want to be in the running for a year of Creative Cloud for free. You can go over here in your share mode, and you'll see this Behance link. So you can share it on Behance. There's a even learn how to do it. It's pretty awesome. I don't know how fast this will be. So it's going to open up Behance. I'm not going to publish this, although I probably should publish some of my work. But you basically get to build a little bit of a page here of your prototype, and it will be clickable. So everything is here. So, notice how I can go through here and it's still able to go all the way through. I can add even more content. So I'm not going to dive into how you should set up your Behance, but I just wanted to show how easy it was to go from prototype selected to share to Behance. Okay. If you go one step over with the little code looking icon, I can copy this embed code, and I can embed this into, if I'm using Wix, which I highly recommend if you want the easiest portfolio builder, use Wix. But it's easy to embed prototypes inside of Wix. Even anywhere you can embed a video or Google Analytics or anything like that, you can embed a prototype. It's a small amount of code. It's just a simple line. I think it goes into the head of the document technically, but with the website builders today, you don't even have to worry about that. So that's how you would get the link to embed that. Outside portfolio, if you have, let's say you're working in a company and you have an intranet and you have just an informational site, you could also, and you don't want to have to bother any developers, you could design it and you could embed it. So if you have like a knowledge base or an internal wiki, you can create simple things like that are for information only. Let's go back to our sheet here. Okay. Vetting prototypes, presenting your designs. Okay. This is a big one. So as a teacher and having taught many people how to present their work, this is something I'm pretty passionate about. So let's imagine I'm going to present my work. I'm going to present this. I'm going to do this kind of the wrong way first. And let me start actually with this one. Let's say I'm going to present my work here. So I'm here and I'm talking through my work. Oh, this has audio playback though. I don't want to do that. Okay, let's go here. All right. If I'm a designer and I want to present my work, I don't want to go, well, if you tap this button does this, and this goes here. And then if the user hits this button, this goes here, and then this goes here. And you don't want to talk about buttons, and then they can go back if they do this. What you want to talk about is context of use. So what I'm showing you right now, I'm going to show you a little bit better way to present your work. What I'm going to show you now is the patient view of a mobile web call with a doctor, so a virtual medical visit. And I'm going to walk you through the patient's self-assessment if they have COVID or not. And so you can see as the user, I can come in here and I can start answering questions about my health, and I can move through these pieces. And if the patient isn't sure about anything, they can tap on this I button and they can understand, what their symptoms are and how to answer this question. And Once the patient is finished taking the self-assessment, they can go through and they will be put in touch with the doctor depending on how they answered this piece. So I'm going to pause there for a second and see if you all could tell the difference between the two ways that I just presented. And give me a thumbs up if you could see the difference. Thumbs down if you couldn't see the difference. I'm going to open this gallery up real quick. Thumbs up. All right. Yeah. We don't want to get stuck talking about buttons and functions. We want to actually talk about the problem that we're solving, or, this is a solution so a patient can wait and get connected with the doctor quickly. So talking about what you're solving. Now, sometimes there might be conversations in, why you move something to another location, why you changed a particular icon to something else. So there will be some interface conversations, and especially in regards to usability. But ultimately, when you present your designs, you want to present either you're speaking as the user, pretending you're the user, or speaking in context of use of the user, as someone who's a patient and might want to see a doctor but doesn't want to go into the office. I can take the self-assessment and I can get, I can do a virtual call with my doctor to see if I need to do anything else, basically. So think about your storytelling, how you tell the story, and don't get caught up in the interface, because the real questions, even from stakeholders, will be, did you test it? And if you did, who with? And do you think this is going to solve the problem? Something else we're not going to get into right now is dev cost and priority, because sometimes if I look at an interface here, this might be a big dev cost to add in this video call with the patient. So maybe we can just do audio and not visual, certain things like that. Well, maybe we aren't able to, from the dev team, to get certain things because we can't connect it to another backend or whatever. So understanding the limitations, communicating not only with your stakeholders, but with the design team and the development team, will really help give you kind of those parameters of what you need to have in your design. And if you are collaborating on work, frequent communication is key. So whenever I work on a design, I'll talk to my stakeholder. We'll look at what we have going. We'll talk about next steps. I'll go away. I'll do my next steps. And then I'll meet with them again and show them what I'm doing. Not too long ago, we were designing some software and we met with the stakeholder Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we worked kind of together on Monday, separately on Tuesday, showed them what we did on Wednesday, worked separately, and then showed them again on Friday because we were working really fast to build the software. So anyway, frequent communication is key. And maybe you only talk to a stakeholder once a week, but keeping that cadence is really important. Say, okay, well, what time a week can we have together to talk about this design? And that becomes sacred. Like you can move it, of course, but you don't want to skip it because getting that feedback is important. When I first started designing, I was afraid of feedback. I didn't want feedback. I was worried that my designs didn't make sense or they wouldn't like it or something. And nowadays, I can't wait for feedback because I just want to make something that works. I want to make something that works for the business, for the end user. And again, the more we talk and collaborate, the better solution that we get. I used to think as a designer, I had to pull all the smart ideas out of the ether, and you don't have to do that. Some of the best ideas come through collaboration. So even as you're working right now on your own on this little sample project, feel free, maybe if you know some of the community members, say, hey, can I show you my design? And vice versa. Maybe user test with them and give them a task. Hey, can you try ordering a cup of coffee and see what happens there? So leverage the community that you have and your team members when you can. Okay. So I wanted to show y'all one other thing that I created a while back, and I can give you the complete source files to this. It's not quite a case study, and I may have shown this on another session, but this is a presentation in XD, and this is more for entrepreneurs doing an entrepreneur pitch. And you don't have to do this with your designs, but you might do quarterly reports, with whatever team you're working on. And this pitch deck is very similar to a UX case study. So I'm just going to walk y'all through it real quick. And then I'm going to show you something cool at the end. So, what problem are you solving? This could be your own company that you're working for. And I don't have it linked. What problem are you solving? You could talk about what the solutions were. And so every time, one of the design teams that I work with, they have a Google presentation that they talk about their design initiative. And then they have a product requirements document from the product team. And then they add in links to their user flows, to their research, to their prototypes, so that we can see everything. So having a presentation with links in it is really helpful for every big design initiative. Because I can't just receive a design link and say, can you test this? I'm like, what am I looking at? What do you want? What's the goal of this thing? So anyway, talk about what the service is, talk about, these are just two little examples here. Let me go back here. This could be your personas, wants and needs. It could just be one, it could be multiple. This is not something that y'all would need. But you could talk about, if you're trying to pitch a solution or a problem to your team that needs attention, you could say, look, this is how many people need this as a feature. This is how many people need this product as a solution. So you could quasi put that in there for yourselves. Let me go back here. Talk about timing, competitive analysis, same thing. Even though it's a pitch deck for an entrepreneur, it's basically, we need to show this as well. We looked at competitors. This is what we found. You can do visual. You could do, it may link you out to another document completely just to look at competitors. It could be an XD link or something else. This is if you're talking about project progress. You don't have to do that. Don't have to do that. And you probably don't have to do this, but if you are a solo freelancer or a contractor, you might want to do something like this. If you're pitching to get a job and you have just some concepts, and maybe you want to show how you would attack a problem for a company that you want to work for, you could definitely end with the thank you page and this is us, get in touch with us type of a thing. So anyway, I'll share this with you all. It's pretty cool. Again, it's very close to what would be a case study, but this is the part I want to show you here. And I don't think I have it prototyped. Let's see.
Jill.
Yes.
Greg is saying PowerPoint replacement, I think.
100%, Greg. First of all, PowerPoint is painful. And that's like alliteration. PowerPoint is painful. Google Slides, kind of like PowerPoint, a little bit easier to collaborate, but also still not very intuitive. It's really easy to make presentations in XD. And what's so cool about making a presentation in XD and not PowerPoint or not Keynote is that if I wanted to, if my page wanted to go longer, let me just show you, I can actually make my page scroll. I can put this image down here or something. You're not limited to just this real estate if you use this as a presentation tool. So that's something to consider, because it's always hard to fit what you need here in just the one space. It does keep it simple, but sometimes you need more space. Okay, so, and there is a plugin for this, and I think I have it in our list, but this is the presentations plugin. So if I go in here, there are a lot of different tools. I don't necessarily want to switch theme, but there's already built-in themes. And if I edit any text and I change the theme, the text stays, it just gets redesigned. But you can also leverage your assets panel. So if you wanted to use one of these templates, then you could go back into your assets panel and you could adjust the fonts and colors and things like that yourself. Okay, so I'm getting ready to do this right now. I actually am working, my partner and I, we've been working on a startup and we're redoing our pitch deck. And so we are going to put in a prototype, not a whole lot, but maybe a video or a little bit of a clickable prototype inside of our presentation for potential investors. So this is my, mobile prototype. I have the description of what they're seeing here. I can tap on this and it's automatically going to change. And I can also make this scroll. So you can have an embedded, basically, prototype inside of your presentation, and you never have to switch around from one tool to the other. So I love using XD for a presentation, especially if I'm going to put any kind of prototype in there. And I'll show y'all what I did. Basically, I used the scroll groups, and I did vertical scrolling here, and it's just a mask. And by putting that in there, I can make it scroll, and that can still all be clickable. So I can make whatever elements. So if this was my actual design, which it is, I believe, I could still make certain elements clickable in that presentation. And I think I showed you all that with that coffee app example when I showed you 3D transforms. So let me look at my list again. Okay. I think that's it for me, y'all. I would love to hear if you have any questions about if you are doing the challenge right now. We have a few more minutes if you would like to ask questions about what you're working on. But yeah, can I see? I'm going to stop my share so I can see your faces and see the responses. A raise of hands if you're working on something that you're going to upload to Behance. Just a quick raise of hands. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, quite a few. Excellent. Okay, right on. So, yeah, if there's anything that you have a question about right now about where you're at in the process, let's do that now. If you want me to review a prototype, now that you know how to share, you can share that in the Slack channel. What would be cool is if you did a Loom video and you walk me through what you're doing. And you can record your XD screen or your prototype and say, I'm getting stuck here. And then share that video with me, and I might ask you for your source file or to invite me as a collaborator. I can give you my Adobe ID. It's not my email that I use for my agency. But yeah, I can work with you all if you want to share a video, if you want to share a link. And if I have time, I might even be able to do like a short 10-minute session between now and the 23rd. A remote session with you. So just, keep it short, but happy to give you all feedback and some support that you need through this, because it's hard. Honestly, designing by myself, I don't like it. And so if you feel free again to reach out to me, reach out to the rest of the community. And yeah, I'm happy. I'll send out my Calendly if we end up needing to set up a time. So what else? Yeah. Is there anything that's like nagging you about what you've learned so far, what you're trying to do about the UX process? Anything that you think the rest of the community, maybe I haven't shared, that maybe the rest of the community might benefit from? And no pressure. I'm going to take a little sip of Gatorade while you think about it. Okay. So I'm just going to open up this list here. All right, Claudia. Yes, do it. Even if it's a little bit, even if it's on UI, even if it's on how to use the tool or how to present, happy to do that. I think I'm just going to share my screen one more time, y'all. Come to this sheet. This has everything we've been working on in this Google document. And so, Claudia, I think you mentioned this was your first time coming. Again, between November 9th, which is today, and the 23rd, you have about 2 weeks to work on this and submit something to Behance for your chance to win a 1 year of Creative Cloud. Here's the working file that I was working from in the earlier sessions. I've given you some learning resources, some source files. If you've seen anything that I've demonstrated that I haven't shared here, let me know. I even posted this to the Slack channel, but I posted it here too. Some of my favorite plugins, especially as a beginner for y'all. And I think, seeing Louise, you all, I think I showed you this. Let me show you something. It's hard because UX design has the word design in it, and people think they have to be artists, and you don't. You just have to be critical thinkers and strategic thinkers and curious and You don't have to, it doesn't even have to be pretty. We're not judging you on the beauty of what this is. If anything, again, first of all, I won't judge it. Second, to win for the Creative Cloud, again, it just has to be put up to Behance. Again, don't think about, you can take it down later. Don't have to be embarrassed or anything like that. This is just, to see if you can get through that process.
So Jill, there is quite a few questions.
Oh, good.
The first one is, how do XD prototypes become an actual website? Through website coders?
Yeah, so there are some tools. Let's see if I put them in here. So there are plugins that will export to code. And let me see if I can think of those off the top of my head. I'm blanking because it's late in the day, but there are definitely ways to export for code, and I can add these to those resources. If it's a portfolio, it doesn't need to be coded, but what I do is I design in XD and then I build it in Wix. At this point, Wix used to be horrible. Now it's pretty awesome. So it's an adaptive site. It's not responsive. It's adaptive. So you can do desktop and mobile, but it works just fine. And it's what you see is what you get. You can move things where you want them. It's so easy. It's easier than using a design tool, really. But design it out first in a design tool and then go into Wix. Don't try to make it in Wix because then you get stuck using the tool. So developers will code it with whatever framework they want to code it in. They take your designs. They'll use some of the CSS that's here. So if I go on this, let's see, I'm trying to see here. I'm not seeing what I want to see here. Normally there is some extra CSS. So I think I need to I know there was a recent update for XD. So I think I need to do that, but it does give light CSS inside of the share link for the developers. And I would hand this to them and they would code it. So, but this is a way to prototype. Prototyping is, if you need to make changes, it's more expensive to have a developer do it. So the cost of rework for a developer is astronomical. So I have numbers. I have a talk on the ROI of UX. It's way cheaper to edit designs in a prototype mode than it is once it's built. Imagine constructing a house and you put a window on one spot and it's built, and then you have to move the window. Once it's built, it's way more expensive. So, you really want to get things right here first before you hand it off to a developer. But yeah, do you have to be a developer and a designer? No, but you're typically working with the development team. So I'm seeing another, sorry, hopefully that answers your question. So there is a plugin, and I'll just leave a note for myself here. If I don't have it already, to learning resources, start from scratch, and checklist. Okay, let's go here. Export to code plugin. I'll leave that blank so I'll remember.
So the next question is, what book or articles do you recommend for learning about accessibility?
Accessibility. I think we chatted about that last time. I wrote that in up here, I think. Let me see if I can remember what we did here. Material design, accessibility. Okay, I don't think I did. For accessibility, I would just go to this. Nielsen Norman. I believe that they have great resources, whether it's on UX design in general, or so if we go to articles. Okay. And usability, let's see, all topics, accessibility. So I would go here and start. And then I would also, and that I did give the Stark plugin for accessibility. But I would go there for accessibility. I would also look at I'm thinking about really rules of contrast and things like that. I don't have one off the top of my head other than them and this usability.gov. because I believe they have some accessibility considerations here as well. So let's look there. Accessibility basics right here. Phenomenal resource. I'm going to paste this in as well. And tab. There's a lot of kind of noise out there, but I think around accessibility, the more you know, the better. And I don't think you can actually get too much information on that around best practices and things. Right now, as far as design goes, you're thinking about color, contrast, context of use. Who is using it? Do they have full use of their hands, their voice, their eyes, their ears? So understanding how your product might be need to evolve or adapt based on that. I was just using my phone and it pulled up Safari, and I noticed it had a big A and a little a up at the top, so I could expand my text size just by tapping one button. That's thinking about accessibility. So, but yeah, check out these two around accessibility. Let's see, let's move on. And if anybody in the group has ideas for accessibility, please put them in the Slack channel. And I know that there's some great accessibility groups on LinkedIn as well. So that'd be another way to stay on top of it. Perhaps even Twitter could have some accessibility groups, but I think LinkedIn is a great place for that as well. And I'm sure there's even some Slack groups around it, just accessibility. And I'm thinking, again, you have a great community here with Luis. Let's see, A11Y is great. Let's take a look at that. Thank you for adding that. Yes, so this you'll see it sometimes on mobile websites that can turn anything into something that's accessible. So I'm just going to go here. Add that one in there. Thank you for that, Luis. Awesome. Okay, we've got about 5 more minutes. I want to move on to some more questions.
The next question on the list. Do you want the next one?
Yeah.
The next one was says might not be very related to today's topic, but I just wanted to ask if I want to transfer to a freelance, is it a good path, although not as stable as in office?
Okay, say that again. I'm sorry. One more time.
I think if somebody wants to freelance, do you recommend that since it's not quite as stable as working for a company?
Okay, well, I think it's 50-50. You probably will have to freelance before you get hired on a team because you're going to need to build up your portfolio. It's harder to get started out of the gate, right out of school or right out of even being self-taught onto a team. So you're going to have to do some freelance probably. That being said, freelance, you can set your own hours. You can say no to projects. If you're working at a company, while you might have a certain sense of stability, there could be a layoff. There could be something else that happens there. So the sense of security, I think, in the design world, at least for me, I'm open to other ideas here, but I'm giving just my perspective. I've been, even though I have my own agency, I chose it so I could basically be a freelancer. The only thing I've thought about doing now to go and work with a team is because when I do the agency stuff, I have a project for a little bit and then it's gone. I do have a client that I've been consulting with for 5 years, so I feel like I am growing with their team as they're growing and, built those relationships. So really, if you're working at a company, it's those long-term relationships and the ability to benchmark the work that you've done and the impact that your work has made. If you freelance, you might just be doing bits and pieces here and there, and you may not really be able to follow the product as it adapts and changes over time and be able to give any type of measurement of the success that your design has done. So those are kind of the differences. I think job security, it's 50-50 either way. If you're freelance and contract, yeah, you do have to go and look for the work versus it's just at your office. But again, there's the freedom to say no. And technically, I don't know how businesses work in Canada. But if you are going to do a freelance and that's going to be your main source of income, I recommend that you start an LLC and do business that way. So United States, you can create a limited liability company and you can pay yourself through that, and you can write off your business expenses more easily. So you'll save more money in taxes, basically. So there's some pros and cons there. Okay.
Along those lines, Erica was saying, have you come across teams where there is a UX designer and a UX writer working? Oh, when doing freelance work, have you come across teams where there's UX designer and a UX writer working together?
No, because I'm usually working with startups and they don't want to have headcount that large. It would be a larger company that would have a UX designer and a writer. It would be well funded if it was a startup. And as a freelancer, you might work with a writer in the company. I think it just depends on the product, the company, and how much funding is available. Normally, smaller the company, the more hats you wear. Larger the company, the less hats that you wear. So those are kind of usually the determining factors there. That's a good question. And I'm wondering so as a UX researcher, I'm wondering, well, why did Erica ask this question? Because is it possible I'm trying to think, one of the works that I did, we had a UX writer for part of it, but that's only if it's content heavy. If it's not content heavy, as a UX designer, you need to be able to do a little bit of UX copywriting as well, especially if the client doesn't want to help you or give you copy. You have to kind of come up with it through your research. So hopefully that helps, Erica. All right. Next question.
Is there a plugin within XD to track users' interactions during unmoderated usability testing?
That's a great question. So I'm going to go here and let's take a look. I know that there are some. So let's go into the stock and marketplace. Let's go to plugins. Let's go to all plugins. We'll check XD. Usability. Just go there. So quickly test usability. This is how I would search these. I don't use any of these for unmoderated. I think there's even one for like A/B testing. But honestly, I think it's better to do a moderated one here. So I would choose one of these tools maybe, but I'm always scared to hand over my prototype to someone in an unmoderated forum, just because my prototypes are usually quick to find out something and it's not whole. It doesn't show the whole system. So long story short, I don't use these. I used to use usertesting.com, an unmoderated testing platform. It's expensive. And I've found over the years, again, moderated is the way to go, at least for me. So that being said, this one has prototype analytics. Let's take a look at that and let's see what it says here. But yeah, you can take a look. Cancel. I want to check it out. There we go. Oh, cool. It looks like it's giving you some heat maps. I don't know if it's free or not. Update, login, interaction flows, session replays. Here you go. I don't know how you say this. Mupixa. Mupixa. I don't know. But yeah, that's how you would search for any type of plugin, and they'll export to code. So there's a ton in here for exporting to code. There's a Quest web exporter, Flutter, Hero, Fireblade. There's a ton. Anima. So there's a lot here. So you would just have to look through them. You could probably look up CSS, might be better. So yeah, you can convert just to CSS to get your CSS from your design. Anima is a popular one. Fireblade is another one that I've heard good things about. Web export, this is the one I was thinking about. So yeah, I would go to get this one. In fact, this is the one I want to share to our list. Okay. hopefully I answered that question. I didn't ramble too much, Michelle. How about the next question?
Good. So someone is saying they're considering moving from Wix to another platform because it's a bit costly compared to Adobe Portfolio. She's wondering if you recommend Adobe Portfolio.
To be honest, I looked at Adobe Portfolio recently and it seemed very limited. So if cost is a factor for you, I have three ideas for you. Write your case studies in Medium. It's free. You don't need a portfolio, you just have links to your case studies. Design your case studies in XD. You can do a desktop and a mobile version. You can say, hey, if you're looking at it on desktop, use this link. If you're looking at it on mobile, use this link. You don't need, to pay money to show your work or your portfolio. So I think what's challenging is that you won't be able to customize this exactly the way you want. And the ones that I've seen, if we go to examples, aren't phenomenal because you're still kind of stuck into this, I'm going to even say Squarespace looking example. Like this is good for photos, but not for UX portfolio. This isn't UX, not this either. So I think as a UX designer, I think it's better to go super simple. Maybe this one could work. I don't know how much you can customize it, but you should be able to customize it quite a bit. And it does, I don't know if it's responsive or adaptive, but yeah, you just have to go through and see if there is, based on how you think you want your portfolio to look and feel. This is actually pretty good, to be honest. This would work great for a UX portfolio. This one, yeah, you could go in here. Is it going to make me? Oh yeah, it has a little Lightroom there. You could talk about your things, but if you have, let me move my controls here. The hard part is being able to control the layout and the look and feel just the way you want. Like this looks great because look at these great photos. So you get easily fooled by templates because it's filled with something that's beautiful to look at. And from a UX portfolio perspective, it may not have this glamorous photo shots. So, this is a great free alternative, but you could feel limited on how you want your information architecture to work. Because right now, like I think from a UX perspective, that if I'm in projects, this should be highlighted. It's not. That's going to annoy me as a UX designer because the user doesn't know where they're at in the process. That's why I don't like Squarespace. So it's good to get started, but I think I would, or you could just even have PDFs of your work and say, here's my projects, and yeah, I wouldn't get too caught up on that. Is your work impressive? In the sense of, were you able to solve real problems? Were you able to speak to it well? And can you tell the story well if you get the chance to present your work? I think is really the key. So yeah. And there might be, I don't know if you're still a student somewhere, but there might be kind of a Wix student version or something. I don't know, but it's something to consider. Okay, next question.
That reminds me of something I've always wondered about with Wix is like, how you can have you just don't have your own domain, but it's going to be this big, long, like Michelle/Wix/ do you think that's a put off for sharing that as your portfolio if it's this awkward link, but it's free?
I don't think so. Again, the work can stand for itself. I think the only challenge there, which is probably not going to happen, is people are like, give us a link to your portfolio. I don't think they care what the URL is. If they're going to search you, maybe it matters that your name is good in there. And I think, is it going to look a little bit, I'm going to say classier if you have your own domain name? Maybe. But if you have your own domain, try to make it your name. I would choose JillDaSilva.com. I wouldn't try to do any kind of fancy agency name. But from that regard, you could have Portfolio Adobe Jill DaSilva. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, because if you share a Behance link, that's not going to be your name necessarily. It's going to have Behance maybe / your name. So I wouldn't let that off put you, especially in the beginning. If you are on a budget, free is great. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't let that deter you.
A few people have said Notion is good.
Notion, I've heard a lot of good things about Notion as being good for a case study. Yeah, good. Thanks for adding that in.
And Luis was mentioning that for unmoderated studies, you can use Maze.
Mm,
The link here.
awesome. Yeah, I'll click on that real quick. And I will do this for, where do we want to put this? Beep, boop, beep. Sharing for user testing. I'll put it down here. Okay. All right. Anything else, y'all?
I think that's it on here.
Sweet. Well, I love all these questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. And what a good group of people. We have a solid 20 people here right now, and that's such a fantastic, warm group to have. Thanks you all again for coming. I hope to see you active in the Slack channel, and don't hesitate to reach out between now and next week and bring more questions about career and the industry and whatever other things you have. There are no dumb questions at all. I've had all these questions and I've probably had them more than once. So feel free to, speak up and be supported by this group.